Hey you guys, welcome back to my channel and welcome back to another palette week video. Today we are going to be talking about the 10 eyeshadow palettes in my collection that I would keep if I was only allowed to keep 10. I feel like this concept of like if I could only choose however many, you know, has been going around for a while. I know the first person I saw do a style of video like this was Kelly Gooch when she started the if I could only choose one tag. I know I recently did the if I could only keep 5. I know that I've also done the if I could only choose one eyeshadow palette from a specific brand. I've done that too, but today we're just talking about of all the eyeshadow palettes in my collection, which 10 would I keep if I was only allowed to keep 10. So if you're interested in seeing the 10 palettes that I selected, then stay tuned. But first, if you haven't already subscribed to my channel, I hope you consider doing so before you go. I post videos every single Monday, Tuesday, Thursday, and Friday, except for this week we're posting Monday through Friday. So I hope you'll consider subscribing before you go, but other than that, let's just get into the video. So this was really tough to choose the 10 palettes that I selected, and it's not necessarily my favorite palettes. Now, granted, there are some palettes in here that are favorites of mine, but if I was only to keep 10 eyeshadow palettes, I wanted to make sure I had a palette with colorful shadows in it for if I wanted to do a colorful look. I wanted to make sure there was a palette that I could grab and easily like create a work look out of, etc. So I'll explain my reasoning for keeping each palette as we go through the list. But starting with palette number 1, we have my BH Cosmetics Weekend Festival palette, and part of the reason that I would keep this palette is because this truly is a favorite of mine. I just recently filmed my top 10 favorite eyeshadow palettes in my collection, and this one made the cut. Spoiler alert. I will link that video in case you're interested in seeing that. But this is just one of my favorite eyeshadow palettes, and I don't believe you can get this anymore, so I would be devastated to be without this palette regardless. What I love about this is it offers like a bunch of pops of color. Sorry if you can hear the like motorcycle outside my house. It offers a bunch of pops of colors in both mattes as well as shimmers, but then it also offers neutral looks as well. I have hit pan in this shade Boho, which I absolutely love, and I love the shade Trixie up here as an inner corner highlight, so I would hate to be without either of those two shades. And I just always know I can create a plethora of looks when reaching into this palette. So 100% I would definitely keep the BH Cosmetics Weekend Festival palette. Another more affordable palette that I would keep is the ColorPop Kathleen Lights Dream Street palette. This is what this looks like, and if I'm being 10,000% honest with you guys, the main reason I'm keeping this palette, because I can get a lot of these within other palettes. This Kaleidoscope shade, which I had been calling Mermaid Boy in probably 18 videos, is one of my favorite shades throughout my entire collection. It's just such a unique and stunning shade. It shifts into so many different colors and I absolutely love it. So basically I would want to keep this palette for this shade specifically. But what I love about this is you can also create a bunch of neutral tone looks. All of the shimmers in here are very impressive to me. I love that you have your fun pops of blue if you want to do a pop of blue. You even have this pretty coral shade. So definitely would be keeping the Dream Street palette by ColorPop if I could only keep 10. Another palette that I would truly only be keeping for legitimately one shade is the Alomar Cosmetics Volume 1. I don't even know how to pronounce this, but the Volume 1 palette, this is the one that has the yellow packaging. And this shade right here, let me swatch this one for you. You guys, this shade made me just head over heels for green shimmer shades this year. Like, I die. I just don't want to be out with, I just don't want my collection to be without that shade specifically. So I am almost like wasting a palette spot on this palette just for that one single shade. Because these two shades right here are very similar to the shades, the blues in the ColorPop Dream Street palette. And I mean, I could get these shades from other palettes as well. Now, the quality of the eyeshadows within this palette is really good. Don't get me wrong. So it's not like I'm keeping a crappy palette for like one nice shade. But I just love that green shade. However, if that green shade weren't in this palette, I could probably do without. Or it wouldn't be one that I would choose to keep out of the 10. Okay, then I would also keep the Magic palette by Juvia's, strictly because it is a beautiful, colorful palette. Almost all of the bright pops in here are shimmer shades, which I love because I am keeping a different colorful palette for its matte shades. And I really do love almost all of the shimmers, I love all of the shimmers throughout this palette. I think it's such a fun palette, and if I really could only keep 10 eyeshadow palettes, I would want to make sure that my collection still had color, still was fun, and I could create, you know, whatever look really I wanted to create. And I feel like this would be a necessity to keeping in my collection. Also really great quality and affordable, or on the more affordable end of things, so would definitely keep the Magic palette by Juvia's. So then, speaking of colorful palettes, I would keep my Sephora Pro Editorial palette, and this one is pretty much strictly all mattes with the exception of this bottom row, which has some like more neutral, I'll say, shimmers. The top row is more like satins as well, but you get these 2 rows of, well, almost all matte colorful shades. And to be honest with you guys, I rarely reach into this palette for, well, rarely reach into it at all, but I just want the options to be there. Here's another green shimmer shade from this palette, swatched right on top here, that I absolutely love. I do think the quality in these palettes are really nice. They're super luxurious, and I just feel like this is something I would want in my collection if I really truly only had 10 eyeshadow palettes. Okay, I had to keep at least one ABH palette, and you guys will recognize this palette from my top 10, but it is the ABH Soft Glam. This is by far my favorite ABH palette. I just absolutely love the shades in here. I would hate for my collection to go without this mulberry shade. I'm obsessed. Let me swatch over you guys. This is like a matte brownie red, and I just absolutely live for that shade. I also really like the shimmers in here, and I can just create beautiful warm tone looks with this palette. It offers a black, even though some of the other palettes that I selected offer a black as well, but I can create a nice sultry, smoky look out of this palette as well if I want to. So 100% would be keeping this. Okay, next up, I wanted a palette that I could create very quick and easy work appropriate looks with. And when it came down to it, I was going between this and the Huda Smoky Obsessions palette, which I love. Like, I love that palette, you guys. But I feel like that's more for like night out, sultry looks. Even though there's cool tone shades in there, I like to have a cool tone matte brown shade on days that I just need to fly out the door for work. Let me just preface that with this. So I was going between that and the Tartelette in Bloom. I love both palettes so much. I decided to keep the Tartelette in Bloom over the over the Smoky, because this also offers the row with the like pinky mauve tone shades, which every shade in this palette I live, eat, and breathe and die for. Like, I swear, I'm obsessed with this palette. It's near and dear to my heart. I feel like I couldn't not keep this palette because this was one of my first high-end eyeshadow palettes, and it's never led me astray. It's always had my back. I love the Tartelette in Bloom, so 100% had to keep this one if I could only keep 10. Okay, so then I was thinking about the the Coral Obsessions palette from Huda as well. And I actually didn't keep any Huda Obsessions palette, which I love. Like, those are some of my favorite palettes. But I decided to keep the Natasha Denona Sunrise palette over the Coral Obsessions palette because this one offers more, and when I compared the two, they looked very similar, and I feel like I could create very similar looks, but this one just gave me a little bit more variety. The Coral Obsessions palette doesn't offer like this beautiful like purpley shade right here, and this one, again, it offers a wider variety of shades. So I was trying to decide between those two, but I decided that I would keep my Natasha Denona Sunrise palette over the Huda Coral. Okay, we're down to the last two, you guys. Okay, so I just recently spoke about this in my if I could only choose 5 like makeup products in general to keep, and it is the Tarte Unleashed palette. And the reason I love this palette so much, again, it offers those pops of blue, which I don't necessarily feel like I need because I get those in my other palettes, but I really love this mauve tone row right here, and I also love these two shades right here. I think you can create such a fiery, bright, and vibrant look with these, and then you can go with like your pop of blue on the bottom, which I just love. The quality in this eyeshadow palette is really top notch. I meant to review this eyeshadow palette on my channel and then it just kind of slipped past me, but I've used every single shade in this palette at least one time, and the only shade that I'll say that's like truly kind of a dud for me is this shade right here, which is Hawkward. The only thing I haven't done with this is tried it over, like if I did like a white eyeliner and then tried it over that to see if it would give it more of a pop, but this shade just doesn't perform the way that I wanted it to. I thought it was going to be this beautiful greeny shade, which it does swatch that way, but on the eyes it just doesn't give the pop effect that I sort of was looking for out of this. But overall, super high quality palette. Really do love this palette. Love that it offers such a wide range of looks that I can create, and 100% would keep this one. Okay, so then for the last palette that I would keep, 10,000% you guys, I have to keep the Natasha Denona Lila palette. The reason being, there's just so many unique shades within this palette that I absolutely love, and I would be devastated if I was without them in my collection. All of the shimmers in here are just so unique. My like 5 favorites are all 4 on the bottom as well as this one on top. Let me just swatch these for you. Some of them are just so unique, and they shift so many ways into so many different colors. I probably sound like an absolute crazy person right now, but okay, so here they are, and I don't feel like you're gonna get the effect that I'm talking about. I would lie and say that I'm gonna include swatches of all these palettes in this video, but let's be real, I don't have my life together enough yet to be that put together in my YouTube videos. That's my goal for 2020. My goal for 2020 is to pump out better review videos with swatches and all that jazz. But I mean, these are just so unique. I really can't even describe how cool these shadows are, so I could not give this palette up. Couldn't do it. Plus, this was the first Natasha Denona palette that I purchased. It was the first time I spent over $100 on an eyeshadow palette, so, you know, there's a lot of feelings going on between me and the Lila that I just can't give up either. So after that, you guys, that is going to conclude the 10 eyeshadow palettes that I would keep if I could only keep 10 throughout my collection. Leave me a comment and let me know at least the top 3 or 5 that you would keep in your collection. It doesn't have to be 10. It could be 10. I would love to hear from you guys. Thank you so much for sticking around to watch this video, and I will catch you in my next video. Bye.